All right. Hello there and welcome. I'm excited to have you here. We are going to get started. Let me stop screen sharing there for just a minute. All right. Hopefully you can see me now. If you cannot see me, then you probably can't hear me. Hopefully you see the instructions down there below. But welcome to the class. I'm going to go ahead and get started right away. If you missed the beginning here, you'll be able to watch the replay later. So I want to say thank you for coming. I am excited to have you here, excited to teach this class. I hope that you find a lot of value in it and that you learn a lot. A few things. If you look down below me, you'll see a chat box and you can type in questions you have there. Type them in as we go along so you don't forget them, but I won't be able to see that while I'm presenting. So please know that I won't be able to answer those questions till the very end, but I will get to all of them. I won't leave any of your questions unanswered. If for any reason you have to take off, you can leave your question and type your email address and I'll email you the answer. All right. Okay, so I am going to now go ahead and switch over to my slides and start this presentation. I'm going to start by introducing myself just a little bit. I know that some of you on the call today are familiar with me. You might follow me on Facebook or get my emails, but many of you may not know me yet. And even if you do, I don't know that everybody knows my story and how I got started with emergency preparedness. So I would like to go ahead and share that with you today. So let me switch over here to my screen share. All right, I think you're seeing what I'm seeing, and we'll get started. So let's see. Okay, I grew up being taught by my parents and by my church that food storage was very important. We drank powdered milk and had buckets of wheat in the basement. My mom even gave me a basic 3-month food storage supply as a wedding gift. But to be honest, I didn't really believe in food storage as a young adult. I felt no real urgency to build a solid food storage or to learn how to use the food storage that I already had. Even when I initially got pregnant with twin boys in 2007, I didn't really think much about food storage. I was too busy thinking about diapers and car seats and boppy pillows. But a few weeks before the twins were born, my husband and I moved from Utah to California so that he could attend law school. And we left behind friends and family and good paying jobs to do so. We found a little apartment and settled in, but honestly, I was really unsettled internally. I wasn't sure we'd be able to care for ourselves and our family if life threw us a curveball. And every day I sat in this tiny little apartment in a big city with 2 gorgeous babies, no local support system, and no income. My husband was gone 16 hours or more a day at school, and I realized that we needed to be better prepared. So I started Googling emergency preparedness, and I found a lot of info. Man alive, did I find a lot. Some of it was helpful, but honestly, much of it was fear-filled. And all of it was somewhat of this kind of hodgepodge of disconnected and sometimes conflicting advice. There was no step-by-step system that told me what I needed to do first, next, and last. And a lot of the information was over my head, or it didn't apply to me specifically, and didn't meet my family's needs. I was afraid of all the different scenarios that I was reading about online, and I started to feel kind of helpless because I really couldn't figure out how to get prepared for all of those things. So studying up on emergency preparedness in this way was kind of, squashing my optimism, and it was making it difficult for me to enjoy my everyday life. I wanted simple, down-to-earth information that fit me, just a normal mom who wanted to do her best to be ready to care for her kids. And not being able to find that type of information made me feel panicky and vulnerable. So I did what I often do when I feel helpless, and I turned to God. I prayed, and he helped me realize 2 things. First, he wants me to enjoy my life, my kids, my husband, the beach, the mountains, the rain. Life is to be enjoyed. And second, He loves me similarly, although more perfectly, to how I love my own children. He expects my best, and he's not going to save me from every tough situation. But he will help me learn from those tough situations, and he'll help me develop character through difficult times. So after I realized these two things, I was able to let go of my fear and my obsession. All I really needed to do was my best. And honestly, my best really wasn't that much at that time because we had no income. And even if the bad things that I feared happened, God would make them meaningful in some way in my life. He would use them to school me and my children in some way. But this didn't get me off the hook when it came to working on emergency preparedness, because just like I expect my children to work hard and do their best because it's good for them to not always rely on me, God expects the same from me. And my best wasn't much at first, but I did do what I could. Doing that allowed me to let go of my fear and that doomsday pessimism and start enjoying my everyday life again. I started spending reasonable amounts of time experimenting with different methods or suggestions or ideas I'd find online. I'd research, and then I'd practice, and then I'd experiment, and I'd start over again. And over time, I was able to decide what worked best for our family, and I started sharing what I was learning with others on my website. And as that site grew, it brought the opportunity to test a lot of different preparedness products and food storage brands for free, which was a huge opportunity. It allowed me to fairly compare them without investing in each one individually. I also found that there were many others who were looking for simplicity like I was. Many others who wanted to get better prepared, but they didn't want to be obsessed with it or have it overtake their lives. There were a lot of others who felt panicky and overwhelmed and stuck. And happily, since 2009, I've been blessed to help thousands of these people become better prepared while enjoying their everyday life. Now, I am not, you should know this, I'm not an over-the-top doomsday prepper. I don't have a bunker anywhere. Food storage and emergency preparedness are important to me, but not any more so than dancing with and cuddling with my kids. So, you're at this class today. And if you feel like I did 9 years ago, the information that I will teach you today is for you. Or if you want to build a food storage, but your head spins when you try to sit down and plan it out, then the information in today's class is for you. If one of your New Year's resolutions is to work on food storage, but you get on Google and Pinterest and you feel depressed and overwhelmed, then this class is for you. And if you want to be able to confidently care for your family anytime things don't go as planned, but you're not quite sure where to start, then I wrote this class for you. My goal today is to help you choose which method you'll use to calculate out a food storage for your family, and to then give you the tools you need to make planning your food storage simple, to actually calculate it out quickly and accurately. So we will cover 4 different methods for calculating a food storage for your family. First, I call the just add water meals method. Not too fancy there or anything, but the second is the basic calorie method. The third is the calorie plus method. And the fourth is the recipe method. Now, there are pros and cons to each method, and we'll discuss those so that you can decide which one is best for your family right now. And I also show you how to calculate what your family needs, what your family's needs are based on the method you choose, so you don't waste hours of time trying to figure that out on your own. And last, I will teach you how to make your chosen method work well for you so you don't waste money on food storage that you're not going to use. But make sure that you stay till the end, because at the end of class is when I will be giving access to a printable summary sheet so you can remember what you've learned, food storage conversion charts, and 3 different food storage calculators for free. Now, these calculators typically cost $10 each, but I will be giving them away for free at the end of this presentation. Plus, you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions you might have about food storage. Now, again, you can ask those questions right now. Go ahead and type them in the chat that's down below the video. but I can't see that chat while I'm presenting because the presentation takes up my whole screen. So I won't be able to answer those questions till the end, but you can type them as we go. You can type them at the end, either way. Now, I will cover as much as I can today, but I simply can't give you everything that I've learned in the last 10 years in just an hour. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to learn more and continue to work with me at the end of today's class. So let's go ahead and start into the content now. So giving thought to the method that you'll use to calculate your family's food storage is pretty important. Over the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of people begin stocking food without planning anything first, and it just isn't smart. Storing any food is much better than storing no food, and honestly, it's how I started. But when you start without a plan, it creates inefficiency, which results in wasted time and wasted money, and I don't want you to waste either. So as I walk you through your choices today, I want to invite you to give some serious thought to what will work best for your family. That might be different from what works best for my family, and that's okay. That's why I'm going to list the pros and cons of these various methods. So one choice for building your food storage is to use pre-made just add water meals. And these are pouches of food that have a number of different ingredients in them to make a meal. One example would be hot cereal that included oats, freeze-dried nuts, and a bit of sugar all in one bag. Another example might have noodles, tomato powder, mushrooms, seasoning, and freeze-dried sausage, and you have spaghetti. So in order to eat them, you simply add water, heat them up, and you're good to go. At first glance, just add water meals are very appealing to many people for two main reasons. First, they make planning what you need to store very easy. You simply buy a bucket full of the number of meals you want, and you're done. You don't need any sort of fancy calculator. Second, they're very easy to use. There's no need to learn to cook with your food storage when all you have to do is add water. But in addition, there's one other reason that I personally store a few of these. In a disaster situation, I might not be able to find 8 different pots and pans and dishes. For this reason, I keep a few just add water meals upstairs in my regular pantry and in my car. The convenience of them would be very valuable for the first day or two following a disaster. However, I have found that a lot of people don't really know about or understand the downsides to just add water meals. So here are 5 that I want you to consider. First, they honestly don't taste great. I've tried many, many brands, and there's none that I love. There are some that are okay and definitely edible, but none that are just delicious. Since this is because all the ingredients are in one bag, so everything has to be cooked at the same time. So all the flavors just mush together, and you kind of have to choose between soggy noodles or crunchy beans and meat. Second, they're difficult to rotate. So that's partly because of the not so great taste. It's likely your family's not going to want to eat them instead of your regular everyday meals that you make with fresh ingredients. So oftentimes they'll just sit on your shelf and not be used unless you're forced to use them. But if you aren't ever forced to use them, you're going to end up tossing out thousands of dollars of food, which is sad. Third, they don't offer a lot of nutrition. In order to maintain their long shelf life, these meals have to have a lot of additives and preservatives in them because there's a whole mixture of ingredients. So they'll usually have large amounts of salt, MSG, sugar, or other additives. And eating those for a few days obviously isn't really going to damage anyone's health, but eating them for weeks or months, it could. So in addition to the additives and preservatives, something else to consider about the nutritional value of these just add water meals is that most of them, not all, but most of them are heavy on white grains like rice or pasta. They'll have very few veggies, very little protein. The refined grains are full of calories. They're inexpensive calories, which is why these meals are full of them, but they don't have much else. So they're not going to sustain your energy long term. Fourth, they're not going to help your mood any in an emergency situation. What you eat affects your mood. It really does. One of my favorite quotes about food in general is from Virginia Woolf, who said, "One cannot think well, love well, or sleep well if one has not dined well." And I can't think of a time when it'd be more important to think, love, and sleep well than following a natural disaster or during a period of financial insecurity. Both the inferior taste and the inferior nutrition are going to contribute to this. Last, they cost a lot. At first glance, they might seem to be kind of a less expensive option, but this is deceiving. A bucket may claim to have 30 meals for a family of 5, but when you actually look at the calories, each person is getting less, and sometimes even far less than 1,000 calories per day. I've seen some of these meals as low as 400 or 500 calories per day per person. And since you can't really survive well on so few calories for weeks or months, you might need to buy 2 buckets instead of 1 to give you a sufficient supply, and that's going to double or possibly even triple your cost. In addition, some companies will claim 2,000 calories per day, but oftentimes a large portion of those calories is coming from sugar-filled drinks and not from food. So you might get 1,200 to 1,300 calories from food, and the rest come from sugar. In addition, because of the fact that these meals are heavy on the refined grains, you might choose to supplement with additional fruit, veggies, or protein. That's also going to increase your cost. I've found that when I calculate cost per calorie for actual food, Just Add Water meals are almost always the most expensive option. Everyone tells me I talk too fast, and I can feel myself doing that here as I'm tripping over my words. Sorry. All right. So in summary, Just Add Water meals are a good option if you're paralyzed by the effort and time required by the other 3 options that we're going to discuss today. If you do choose to store a long-term supply of Just Add Water meals, here are some tips to make this work well for you. First, taste as many options as you can before fully investing in any one. Second, set a schedule to eat one of these Just Add Water meals every month or so you can rotate through them. Third, try to find options that have less additives and preservatives in them. Look for options that include a good balance of grains, fruits and veggies, and protein, or purchase those things on the side. And last, be careful of the cost. Make sure that as you're looking at cost, you're actually figuring out what the cost is per calorie. All righty. The next method for building a food storage is what I like to call the basic calorie method. And this is what many people initially think of when they think of food storage. This method includes basic life-sustaining foods such as whole grains, beans, oils, sugars, baking supplies, powdered milk. And when you use this method to plan your food storage, you calculate what you need based on the number of calories you want to eat each day. And there are some calculators out there that use pounds to calculate your needs, but I personally don't think that's very accurate. I suggest using calories. Many people wonder, and this was actually one of the most common questions I got before this class when I asked, what do you want to learn, was how many calories per day should I store? And honestly, it's a great question, but it's not one that I can answer directly because I don't know your situation. I can, however, guide you in making a decision. So consider these 3 questions. First, how many calories per day do you eat right now? Even if you don't count calories, approximate it. How much exercise or other physically exerting tasks do you do each week? And then think about the disasters that are most likely to happen in your area. If that disaster happened, are you going to have more or less energy to handle it? Many people choose to store a very minimal amount of calories per day. They think this is survival food, right? All I have to do is be able to survive. Well, surviving can sometimes be hard work. It's quite likely you're going to need more and not less energy in a disaster situation because of the high stress level. So I suggest that you store at least the number of calories you currently consume, if not more. Now, there are 3 main benefits to using this method to plan and then build your family's food storage. And they're pretty big benefits. First, it's extremely cost effective. That's huge. These foods are the least expensive calories you can get. This is how I started back when I had very little money, but I wanted to do something. Second, it's relatively easy to plan. While it's not quite as simple as the Just Add Water meals, it's not going to take days or hours to plan what you need, as long as you have a calculator, right? So the calculator I'll be giving you at the end of class will do all the math for you. And in just a matter of minutes, you'll have a shopping list ready of what you need to purchase, what should be in your family's food storage. Last, this method offers quick peace of mind, and I think that's a huge benefit as well. Most families can afford the time and the money to get at least a 2 to 4 week supply of basic foods in their home. And this can bring valuable just peace of mind, calmness to your life. The other methods require more time and more money, but with the basic calorie method, that peace of mind can be found really quickly. There are some additional things to think about when considering the basic calorie method. Here are 6. First, there is a learning curve to cooking with these foods. Most people don't regularly use things like wheat and powdered milk in their everyday cooking. And some people don't bake or cook much from scratch at all, so they don't use things like sugar, baking soda, and dried beans. Now, that's not true of everyone. I know that. But if that is true of you, there's going to be a learning curve as you begin to use these basic foods. Now, some of you might think like I did years ago, oh, well, I'll just get them now and learn to use them eventually. But the problem with that is that eventually never comes around. And I've been there. So if you store these types of foods but don't learn how to use them, you're going to significantly increase your stress level during an emergency, and stress will already be high. So think about it. If you have to learn how to use a wheat grinder when the internet is down and you didn't realize, if you have to learn how to use wheat and the internet's down and you didn't realize that you needed a wheat grinder to turn it into flour, what are you going to do? You're going to have to learn to use these foods. Second, they can be difficult to rotate. And this is, again, only true of those people who aren't already using these foods in their everyday life. But if you fit into that category of those who don't cook from scratch and don't want to, it's going to be hard to rotate through them. Even if you discipline yourself to learn how to use them, if you don't regularly do so, they're just going to sit on your shelf again. And just like those Just Add Water meals we talked about, you might just end up wasting your money. Third, eating only basic foods can cause food fatigue. So if all you're storing in your food storage and you end up with a whole year's supply of it or something is basic foods, that lack of variety can cause food fatigue. These foods can become a little bit boring, and that can affect your mood again. And you want to be at the top of your game during an emergency. So this is something to think about when considering this method. Fourth, these basic foods can cause digestive issues. Now, once again, like most of the cons, I guess, to the basic calorie method, a lot of these can be solved by just using them regularly. But if you're not used to eating those grains and beans, you're going to get sick when you start to. And that's going to sap your energy just when you need it, increase your stress, and add more problems during a difficult time. And in a true emergency situation without access to medical care, these issues can be especially dangerous, particularly if you have young children or elderly that you're caring for. But once again, if you learn to use these foods, then this isn't going to be an issue for your family. Fifth, basic foods are missing certain nutrients. Now, basic foods are healthy. They are very healthy. There's nothing unhealthy about them. But there are certain nutrients that are found in fruits and vegetables that aren't found in grains and beans and powdered milk. Now, you can get some of those by sprouting your grains and beans, but not all of them. Last, it's difficult to create full meals with just basic foods. This method simply calls for storing enough basic calories to sustain life. But that doesn't automatically mean you're going to be able to make full meals out of the calories you have stored. You can rotate through the ingredients you store by making bread or serving a side of beans for dinner, but it's very difficult to create full meals from just basic ingredients. All right, in summary, the basic calorie food storage method is a good option for those who are on a tight budget, who like to cook from scratch. If you do choose to go with the basic calorie method, make sure you learn to cook the foods that you store, if you don't already know how to. Make certain you have a grain meal so that you can turn your grains into flour. You can even grind your beans. And bean powder can be used for a lot of things. You learn to cook from scratch at least weekly so that you can rotate through that food storage and make sure that your digestive systems are used to whole grains and beans. Store your family's favorite spices and herbs in addition to what the calculator will tell you to store to help kind of avoid that food fatigue. Learn to sprout your grains and beans, and then consider gardening or storing fruits and veggies at some point in the future as your finances allow. Method number 3. I call this the Calorie Plus method, and it's similar to the basic calorie method, but it's a little more robust. This method still uses whole grains, beans, and powdered milk. Baking supplies as its base, but it also includes fruits, vegetables, condiments, meats, even cheese if you want it. What you need to store is still based on calories, and there are 4 main benefits to using the Calorie Plus method. It's still relatively easy to plan. With the Calorie Plus method, you're still planning food storage based on calories, so you plug it into the calculator and it shoots it back out at you. There's just a few more things that you have to enter into the calculator. The food you store is well balanced and nutritious. With the Calorie Plus method, you're getting all those healthy grains and beans, but you're focused on balanced calories, so you'll store foods from all the food groups, which means your food storage is better balanced and more nutritious overall. You're not going to experience food fatigue because of the wide variety of foods in your food storage. You don't have to worry about getting tired of the food that you're storing. And creating meals is easier. Now, while it's not quite as easy as the recipe method, which we'll talk about next, creating meals from food storage built using this method is easier than just the regular calorie method because you have things from all food groups. However, there are still a few drawbacks to this method that you should consider. Here's 4. First, there is a learning curve. Since the calorie method still uses all the things in the basic calorie method, you're still going to have to learn to use those things, wheat and beans and rice and all that. However, the fruits, veggies, and meats that you store will likely have less of a learning curve. Second, rotation can still be difficult. Even though some of the foods stored with this method are more familiar, I've still found that a lot of people don't use them regularly. For example, I don't like canned green beans or most any canned fruit or vegetable, to be honest. But when I started adding produce to my food storage, that's the only way I knew how to get shelf-stable produce. So I stored canned green beans. But sadly, we rarely ate them and wasted a lot of them. And you might experience the same problem if you don't know where to get quality food. In addition, this method still requires more from scratch cooking. And if you don't have or make the time to do that, you might waste your food. Third, you may still experience digestive issues, once again, because you're still including wheat and beans, or grains, I should say, not just wheat, grains and beans. But again, this can be solved by regularly using the food you store. And last, it can be difficult to create full meals. Now, some of you might be saying, what? I know I've listed this as both a pro and a con for this method. I want to emphasize that if you choose to store food based on calories, that doing so using the Calorie Plus method will make creating meals easier than doing so using the basic calorie method. And that's why I've listed it as a pro. However, anytime you store food based on just calories, you may still end up with some awkward meals. And that's because even if you have a balanced number of total vegetables, grains and dairy, you might have too much or not enough of one specific ingredient. For example, you might end up with lots of extra spaghetti noodles and not enough tomato sauce. So creating meals can still be a little bit tricky. In summary, the Calorie Plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage, don't need the least expensive option, and aren't ready to spend the time required for the last method that we'll discuss today. So if you choose to go with the Calorie Plus method, be sure that you learn how to store the foods, how to use the foods that you store, if you don't already know how. Make certain you have a grain mill so that you can turn your grains into flour, and cook from scratch at least weekly so that you're rotating through it and making sure your family's used to eating it. All right, the last method for building a food storage, I call it the recipe method. And the idea behind this method is that the food you store should be based on recipes. In other words, you should store ingredients you need to make specific recipes instead of just storing calories. You do have to get more specific and focused. So the first step is to gather recipes your family likes to eat and then convert them to shelf-stable ingredients. Calculate how much of each ingredient you need to store. Now, this isn't possible with all recipes. For example, there's no full steak available in shelf-stable format. But with the amazing shelf-stable foods that are available today, it can happen for most of your recipes. I'd say 60 to 70%. I will provide you with food storage conversion charts at the end of today's class to help you, if you choose this method, convert your family's recipes. There are 5 main benefits to using the recipe method to plan and build your food storage. First, your food will be easy to use. When and if you have to use your food storage, this method is going to be the easiest one to quickly switch over to. There's not much of a learning curve to making your family's favorite recipes. Second, your food storage will be well balanced and nutritious. Now, obviously, some of that is going to depend on how well balanced your family's recipes are in the first place. But at the very least, basing your food storage on recipes you're already eating means that your food storage will have the same level of nutrition that your diet does. And this also helps those with food allergies. Maybe you're allergic to wheat, maybe you are celiac and you can't store that. So the basic calorie method doesn't work for you. But the recipe method will, because all you're doing is storing the food that your family's already eating or that you're already eating. Third, you're not going to experience food fatigue. When you store food based on recipes, you get to decide how much variety to include, and no matter what you choose, they're recipes your family already likes and enjoys. Rotation's easier, which means you're going to waste less food. By storing ingredients your family already uses, you can rotate through those ingredients far easier. Even if you don't make the whole meal from shelf-stable foods, you can use shelf-stable sausage and throw it in your spaghetti sauce, and everything else is fresh. Instead of trying to feed your family foods they aren't used to and might not like, you're feeding them things that they already enjoy. So you'll naturally rotate through your food without a lot of effort. And there's a few extra benefits that come with storing food that you already eat. Now, this could be true of all the methods we talked about today, as long as that's what your family eats. If you eat basic foods, then all the extra benefits I'm going to list here apply to you. But if you don't, and you choose to go with this recipe method instead, you're going to get some extra everyday benefits. Food storage isn't just for natural disasters. Obviously, it's helpful then, or job loss, or other huge circumstances, but it can help in more everyday ways. For example, having food you regularly use to cook normal family meals stored in your home will decrease the time you spend planning meals, making grocery lists, and shopping at the store. Or what about a week where you're sick or overly busy and just can't find the time to get to the grocery store? Well, pull out your food storage and avoid the cost and poor nutrition of fast food. Or what about a week with a really bad snowstorm? The power's still on, you could drive to do your grocery shopping, but you'd really rather stay home. Well, use your food storage and you keep yourself warm and safe. Or how about the night where you find out your friend or neighbor has just experienced loss or personal tragedy, but it's just hours before dinner? Well, pull out your food storage and whip up a quick meal to show you care. Now, obviously, if you don't use your food storage regularly, if it's not food that you're already eating, you're not going to do those things because it's stressful, it's hard. But if you're storing food that you like and eat all the time, these things become easier. There are only 2 real downsides to the recipe method, but they are both pretty hard to overcome. First, it's time consuming to plan. Gathering recipes, converting them to shelf-stable format can be time consuming, overwhelming, and honestly, just plain hard. The calculator that I will give you today will make that significantly easier because it's going to do all the calculations for you, but you will still have to gather recipes and convert them. And that will take more time than the other options. In addition, the cost can be higher. Not quite as high, I believe, as the Just Add Water meals, but it is a more expensive option for most families, as it's not typically going to be whole grain and bean heavy unless that's what you eat regularly. Quality shelf-stable fruits, vegetables, and meats are more expensive per calorie than those basics. However, I will say this, as I've started using my food storage more regularly in my cooking, I haven't really seen our grocery budget go up a whole lot, even though I'm adding more foods, because I'm not wasting foods. Like, for example, celery. I always would buy celery and then I only use half of it or even a third of it for a recipe. And if I didn't think, oh yeah, I should have more recipes this week that use celery, if I didn't do that, then it just went to waste. But by using shelf-stable celery, I just scoop out, a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup, and there's no waste. So that does help kind of balance that cost there. So in summary, the recipe method is a good option for those who want a highly customized, easy to use food storage that they know their family will enjoy eating and are willing to invest time in planning that food storage and money into building it. So if you choose to go with the recipe method, here's some things to make it work for you. Commit to investing a significant amount of time. Pick 3 to 5 breakfasts, lunch, and maybe 7 to 14 dinner recipes. Convert those recipes to shelf-stable ingredients, and then try making them at least once so that you know they turn out. Then use the calculator. I'll provide you with in a bit to calculate out how much of each ingredient you'll need. And also realize that if you really want to go with this method, you can plan and build just 1 month at a time if you need to for financial reasons. So I'd like to share with you what I've done as I've built a food storage for a family, but first I have to take a drink. So give me just a second. All right, but as I do this, I don't want you to just do what I did. What I've done might not be right for your family. The reason I'm sharing this is because I get that seeing how someone else has put this information into action can be a helpful starting point, even if you don't do things exactly the same way. So when I first started with food storage, we were very poor law school students and didn't have any extra money. For this reason, and the fact that I just didn't know much about all the options out there for food storage, I started with a basic calorie plan. I purchased enough calories of wheat, rice, beans, powdered milk, macaroni, dehydrated carrots and onions, oats, and sugar to last my husband and I for 1 month. Our twins were still breastfeeding at this point. In addition, I bought a very inexpensive hand grain mill and learned to make homemade bread. Storing that food and learning the little I did brought incredible peace of mind. I loved knowing that we had something, anything stowed away. It would keep us alive if it needed to. But man alive, I am so glad I did not have to use that food exclusively. It would have been so overwhelming. I have no idea what kind of meals I could have made. Over time, I kind of switched to the Calorie Plus plan. Now, I didn't actually sit down and calculate out the calories, but I did slowly add more fruits and vegetables and meats into our storage. I didn't have space for a garden or the money to invest in canning equipment, or quite honestly, the energy to learn. I had 3 children under age 2 at the time. So I bought grocery store cans of produce, but I didn't love the texture or how they worked in my recipes, but I just didn't realize there were any other options. Still, having those cans brought even more peace of mind. It wasn't food we hated or didn't know how to use. I convinced myself that I'd get around to eating it and we'd have it for dinner more often, but unfortunately we didn't really do that often enough. And I wasted a lot of food because we didn't rotate through it. Eventually, I learned about and tasted freeze-dried foods. And I was amazed at how close to fresh they tasted in my family's recipes. We were doing better financially at this point, and I realized that with freeze-dried foods, I could base my food storage off of recipes my family already knew and loved. So I got really zealous, and my goal was to create a full plan based on recipes. But it ended up being harder than I thought. I didn't have the calculator I'm going to give you today. So I started by simply adding food I knew I used regularly in recipes. For 2 years, I just kept randomly adding foods like freeze-dried chicken, green beans, corn, strawberries, potatoes, cheese, and more. As that food storage grew, I loved knowing that there were recipes I could make with my food storage. But I still wasn't sure exactly how much of each ingredient I needed for a 3-month or 6-month or 12-month supply. It wasn't until 2014 that I actually sat down and calculated that out. And I started, like I told you to do, by choosing recipes we loved. And then I tested each recipe 2 to 3 times with shelf-stable ingredients, and I tweaked it a bit every time until it was just right. And you can find a lot of those recipes on my website. But once I had every recipe converted, I then created that calculator so I could figure out exactly how much of each ingredient I needed. So as I've thought about this process that I went through, I'd like to offer a few encouraging thoughts. First, some food is always better than no food. Don't let the fear of choosing the wrong method keep you from storing food for your family. Make the best decision you can with the information you have, but make a decision and then act. Store something. The peace of mind is priceless. Second, it's okay to start simple, even if that's not where you want to end up. It's okay to start with the basic calorie method. That's where I started. Or start with the recipe method, but pick just a few simple recipes. You don't have to go all out like I have recently. I didn't start that way. I do suggest that you keep your long-term food storage goals in mind so you don't buy things that won't fit into that at all. But starting as simple allows for immediate peace of mind and those quick wins that motivate you to keep moving forward. Third, mistakes are okay. I wish I'd never stored so much canned grocery foods. They don't work for me. But hey, I learned. Our family had food insurance during that time, and it ended up benefiting a local food bank. It's okay that I made the quote unquote wrong choice for our family. It was better than not making any choice at all. Last, the method you choose will likely evolve and change over time. Maybe right now you don't have time to learn how to use basic foods, but in 5 years when all your kids are in school, you will. Or maybe right now you're living on student loans and don't have any extra income for freeze-dried foods, but in 10 years when you're well into your career, you will be able to afford them. Your tastes will likely also change over time, which means you might change the recipes you store food for. So be open to that and keep that in your mind as you choose which method you'll move forward with for now. So remember my story and those 4 encouraging tips. You can plan and build a food storage for your family, and you can gain peace of mind and become more self-reliant. Except for my slide says peach of mind. I need to fix that. You'll gain peace of mind, not peach of mind. So as a review, just add water meals are a good option if you are paralyzed by the effort and time required by the other 3 options. The basic calorie method is a good option for those who are on a tight budget who like to cook from scratch. The Calorie Plus method is a good option for those who want a well-balanced food storage but don't want to spend the time required for the recipe method. And last, the recipe method is a good option for those who want customized, easy-to-use food storage and are willing to invest the time and money. Now, many people emailed me before class asking about inventory systems. So once I have food, some of you already do, how do I keep an inventory of it? How do I figure out how much more I need? How do I not forget about things? Now, there are 2 different inventory systems that I recommend. The first is called the Preparedness Planner, and this is written by a lady named Jennifer. Jennifer is now a good friend of mine, but when I first found her planner, I didn't know her. This planner is incredible. It's so thorough, so helpful, and she is supportive as well as you work through it and have questions. So if you like paper, this is the paper inventory system I recommend. If you have a smartphone, I recommend an inventory system called Prep and Pantry. And I like this because for a few reasons. It allows you to keep track of food you store all over your house. So if you don't have a dedicated storage room and you store some under Johnny's bed and some in Jane's closet, then you can keep track of those locations on this app so you know what's where. And second, it makes it really easy to just scan things as you add it to your storage and then scan them as you take them out and put them up in your, your pantry where you're regular eating food. Then you can take that, most of us take our phones everywhere these days, right? So you'll have that phone with you at the grocery store, you see a great sale on rice, and you can look up, do I need more rice? No. Okay, so I'm not gonna waste money on it. Or yes, I do, and you know how much you need to buy. So there will be links to these 2 inventory systems at the end of class. Now, there are 3 different calculators that I've created to help you calculate your family's food storage needs once you've chosen a method. The first is for the basic calorie method, the second for the Calorie Plus method, and the third is for the recipe method. Now, each calculator can be adjusted in various ways to fit your family's current needs. So, for example, you might use one calculator now and a different one in a few years. Or you might start with a 1-month supply and then work up to a 12-month supply. Or you might have 2 kids now and have 5 kids later on. So you can continue to use these calculators as your family's needs change. I typically charge $10 for these calculators for each of them, so 30 total. But as a thank you for attending tonight's class, I would like to give all 3 of them to you for free. So below this video, you're going to find a link that says Food Storage Class Free Resources. If you click on that link now, you're not going to be able to access the page. Don't worry, I will give you access in just a few minutes. It takes a password and I'll give you that password. Once you have access, you will find the 3 calculators along with videos showing you how to use each one, a summary sheet of today's lesson, as well as multiple food storage conversion charts. And I sincerely hope that these tools help you build a food storage for your family. Oh, this is the page also where you will see the inventory, links to those 2 inventory systems. Now, if you appreciate the value of what I've taught you here today and are ready to start getting your busy family fully ready for emergencies, I have even more for you. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I can't cover everything I've learned in the last 10 years in this class, not even the things I've learned about food storage, much less the rest of emergency preparedness. I know that you took the time to show up today because you're smart and you care about your family. You want to be able to confidently care for them, even when things don't go as planned, and you don't want to rely on others who may or may not be reliable to do that for you. Maybe you even have a New Year's resolution to get your busy family prepared. But you're here in this class because you haven't quite found a way to fully get your family prepared yet. You're busy. You don't have time for never-ending Googling about emergency preparedness, and trying to fit it into your life might feel like pushing a round peg into a square hole. You know it's important, but you just haven't been able to make it happen yet. And I've been there. I know how impractical it feels to wade through all that staggering amount of conflicting information that's out there in Google land. Gratefully, I'm no longer there. While there's always room for development and growth, I now feel confident that I can care for my family regardless of what life might throw at us. And so do those that I've coached over the last few years. Here's what one young mother, Stephanie, had to say after working with me. She says, like many people who are beginning to realize the necessity of becoming prepared, I was completely overwhelmed. So much so, I was practically paralyzed. Misty really helped me break down all the different components of emergency preparedness and made it extremely easy to be focused and accomplish my goals. My family is now well on its way to being prepared for anything that may come our way. So today I've given you enough information for you to calculate out a solid food storage plan for your family. But that's just a beginning. You still need to learn to use it. You still need to gather it. You still need water. So I'd like to give you a choice today. You can choose to take the info I've given you and run with it on your own. I've packed this class full of helpful info and tools because I sincerely want to help, and I believe that the things I've given you today will help you make progress with your food storage. But you can also choose to continue to work with me and have my support as you progress in all areas of emergency preparedness. Things like water storage and purification, types of food storage, evacuation, first aid, power outages, all of that sort of stuff that can feel overwhelming. I'd like to invite you to enroll in my comprehensive emergency preparedness course, which I call Simply Prepared. Now, this is a 12-step online learning system that I've built to support moms in preparing their families, or busy families, for emergencies without all that Googling and tiresome research. This is the system I wish I had when I started thinking about emergency preparedness when my twins were born. Each week for 12 weeks, you'll go through one pre-recorded module anytime it's convenient for you. Each module is available in video, downloadable audio, and printable formats. So you can go through them once a week as I release them to you, or you can work on just one a month at your own pace. Access them while the kids are at school or at midnight when everything's quiet. Now, I've told you there's 12 modules. Within those modules, each one has 1 to 3 easy to implement lessons that walk you through the process of preparing your families for emergencies in a very logical and step-by-step manner. I'm going to walk you through, just really briefly, what you'll get out of each of these modules. Module 0, you'll have, when you complete it, you'll have the perspective and momentum you need to be successful and the money and time to truly get prepared. The eye-opening worksheets in Module 1 are honestly a favorite of those who've been through this course. They'll help you avoid the biggest mistake you can make when working to provide or prepare your family for emergencies. They'll help you know exactly what you need and don't need to prepare for. In Module 2, you'll explore new perspectives for making the most out of the storage space you have, and then you'll learn how and where to properly store and rotate your supplies so that they don't go to waste. In Module 3, you'll create a practical and surefire emergency plan for your family. You'll also unlock methods for teaching this to young children without scaring them or overwhelming them. In Module 4, I'll debunk some myths about how to calculate how much water your family needs. There's a lot of misinformation out there on that topic. And I'll help you decide what containers that you're going to store your water in. In Module 5, you'll learn proven ways to both find and then properly clean water sources. In Module 6, we'll take an in-depth look at and compare the 4 food storage calculation methods that you've learned about today. But we'll also discuss 3 types of shelf-stable food so that you can successfully choose quality food that will be useful to your family when you need it. In Module 7, you'll use the calculators that you'll gain access to today to calculate out your food storage, but I will also guide you through setting short and long-term goals. So once you know how much food storage you need, I'll help you set appropriate goals so you can start building your food storage one step at a time. Now, all the food in the world isn't going to do you a lot of good if you don't know how to use it. So in Module 8, I'll help you save time, money, and avoid waste, and decrease your daily mealtime stress by showing you how to regularly use the food you choose to store. I need a drink again. All right, in addition to food and water, there are many other preparedness supplies that are important in a well-rounded emergency preparedness plan. So in Module 9, you'll find out which first aid, communication, hygiene, sanitation supplies are useful, practical, and reliable, and which ones you don't need. Now, power outages are a disaster that almost everyone's going to face at one time or another, and long-term outages can be dangerous. So in Module 10, we'll make sure you have the skills and the tools to cook, and then to stay warm if it's cold and cool if it's hot during a power outage. Finally, in Module 11, you'll create an evacuation plan that guarantees you'll grab what's most important to your family first, even if you're panicking. Now, in addition to the 12 modules, where you have the lessons in that printable video and audio formats, the Simply Prepared course also includes worksheets to help you more fully understand what you're learning and apply it to your family and your situation so you don't waste time investing in the wrong thing or money. They'll also include a challenge for each lesson to help you apply what you've learned, printable summaries, comparisons, lists that will help you remember what you've learned so you can continue to improve over time, as well as charts that will summarize what you learn and compare the pros and cons so that you can make informed decisions of what's right for your family. Plus, outside of the course, the actual course content, you'll have access to 3 additional bonuses. The first is an online community where you can collaborate with people just like you every day who are also going through this course. This community is a great place to get support from other moms who are also working to get their families prepared. Plus, I'll be in there and I'll answer any question you post there within 24 hours. You'll also be able to attend 3 live Q&A sessions with me where we can discuss course content in more detail. And then you'll have access to what I'm calling expert extras. I've reached out to 5 people in the preparedness industry and had them go into certain topics in more depth, and you'll have access to either printable PDFs they've created or videos that you can use. There are also 2 bonuses you get when you complete the course. First, everyone who enrolls in the course will receive their own preparedness priority roadmap, which will help you continue to invest your time and money wisely even once the course modules are all complete. And anyone who completes all the course worksheets by August 31st will also receive a $50 credit to Thrive Life so that they can purchase food storage. To enroll in the Simply Prepared e-course, you can choose to invest 3 payments of $97, or you can save $44 by paying $249 in full at the time of enrollment. Now, this isn't the first time I've opened enrollment to this course, and many students have gone through it. Here's what just a few of them have to say too. First is Rob. He is a former U.S. Marine and firefighter. He's a paramedic. He says, preparedness has been my thing for more than 20 years. Misty has by far the most complete and well thought out preparedness course of anything I've seen. It will be the best money you spend on preparedness. And Jerica says, Misty's e-course covers everything in one stop. It's easy, contagious, and addictive. Her course got us all the tools and resources we needed to be prepared and cut out the extensive info search. As I followed her program, it felt like a weight was lifted. Now, I know that it can be easy to procrastinate preparedness. So I have a fast action bonus for you. The first 40 people to enroll in the Simply Prepared e-course will receive a $50 credit to Thrive Life. Now, this is in addition to the $50 credit you can earn by completing the course worksheets. You get this credit simply for enrolling. Oh, I need another drink. I also have 3 bonuses that I'm only offering to those who registered for this free food storage class. So any of you who were registered for this class, watching it live or who watched the replay, if you enroll within the next 5 days, you will also get a copy of my 72-hour kit ebook, which is valued at, it sells on my website for $16.99. This ebook is what made my website popular, I guess, that people found it and liked it. And it's a step-by-step guide to building a customized 72-hour kit. You'll also get a copy of my food storage recipe book. This is where you're going to find all those recipes that I tested 2 to 3 times and made sure that they were good. Every recipe in here is made with completely shelf-stable ingredients, and they're delicious. And third, you will also get my fillable grab-and-go binder pages. Many of you may have the free ones that I gave away on my website, but these can be filled out electronically by typing, so it makes it much easier for you to save them and then edit them if you need to because your family's circumstance changes. So those 3 bonuses are only available to those who have registered for this free class and who enroll into the Simply Prepared e-course in the next 5 days. Now, I know you're busy, so I will also give you lifetime access to the materials in this e-course and the Facebook community built for it. This means that while the modules are released one at a time over the next 12 weeks, they're never taken away from you once they've been released. So if you need to, you can work through the course at your own pace. Plus, the course content is downloadable, so you can work on the material anytime, day or night, in the car during your commute, when you're relaxing in the tub, or in front of your computer, or out on a walk on the treadmill. You can make it work for your life. Finally, I want you to be confident and comfortable in your investment in this course, so I offer a 100% money-back guarantee. Now, if for any reason you find the course doesn't meet your needs, you have 3 weeks from the start date of the course to request a full refund from me. If you'd like to read more info about the Simply Prepared e-course, you can find detailed information page by clicking on the Learn More About the Simply Prepared e-course button below. But now let's move on and get you those free resources I promised to all of you who stayed until the end. I want you to know that whether you invest in my full e-course or not, I'm grateful for your time today. I truly enjoy helping people move forward in their preparedness plans, and I'm excited to make these gifts available to you for free. Now, you can access the free resources by clicking on the button below that says Food Storage Class Free Resources, and it'll ask you for a password. The password you need to enter is food storage. It's all one word. There is no space between food and storage, and it's all capitals. All right, so food storage, one word, all caps. And on that page, you're going to be able to download the calculators, watch the videos that will help you learn how to use them. You'll also find a printable summary sheet of today's lesson, food storage conversion charts, and links to the inventory systems I mentioned. Okay, now I would like to answer your questions. Feel free to ask anything about planning a food storage or the Simply Prepared e-course. I'm going to start with the questions that have already been asked in the chat, but feel free to continue adding questions. I'll stay as long as I need to get all of your questions answered. So let me pull out of my slides here so I can see your questions and you can see me, and we'll get going. All right, stop screen sharing. Okay, hi. Think you can see me now? Okay, let me go over to the page you're looking at where I can see your chat. Okay. Okay. Sarah says, having looked at your website and video, I wonder if your program is applicable to my family. Our children are grown now. Is your class more for families with young children? Not necessarily, Sarah. I've written it for moms. Specifically, there's a lot of men who take it as well, but it's for anybody who feels overwhelmed and wants to improve their family's preparedness level. Now, if there's any, I don't go in there talking about you have to do this if you have kids or this if you don't, or there's nothing even necessarily said specifically about having kids. It's just, I give you, option A, B, C, and D, and the pros and cons, kind of like I did today with today's class. And then you can decide, okay, in my family, all my kids are grown. So which of those 4 options would work best for me? I've written the class that way because I don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all solution. So you'd be able to, apply the information to your own situation, as well as you can always ask me questions in the forum or on the Q&A calls. All right, Winona says video keeps freezing and buffering. You will get a copy of the recording. You'll get a replay, so you can go back and watch anything that you might have missed. Usually that has to do with the speed of your internet and how fast it can stream the video. Choosing high definition made it better for you, Lisa. I'm glad. What do you mean when you say converted recipes? Okay, Molly, great question. So when I go make spaghetti for my family, I use fresh sausage, for instance, and fresh Parmesan cheese. And if I were to need to make that recipe without access to the grocery store, what would I use instead of my fresh sausage? That's what you need to convert it to. And I choose to use freeze-dried sausage. So that's how I mean you convert it over. Okay, so this recipe is stir fry. That includes fresh chicken and fresh green beans and fresh bell peppers and mushrooms. So how am I going to make that with shelf-stable ingredients? And figuring out, okay, with freeze-dried it's really easy because you're just going to take, if it calls for a cup of mushrooms, you use a cup of mushrooms. But with some other things, if you're using canned things, that's where you're going to need to practice those recipes a little more, make sure they taste good with shelf-stable foods. If that didn't answer your question, ask some more. All right, for the recipe method, is there a way to get samples of items in order to see if your family will really eat freeze-dried foods? Sounds like the best option for us, but I don't want to waste money on a bucket or whatever if it turns out my family can't stomach the texture or taste. Kimberly, I love you. That is awesome. You don't want to invest money in food that you haven't tried or tasted. I can't offer free samples, but I do get a lot of 50% off food from Thrive Life. And I personally believe they have the highest quality food storage or freeze-dried food. And I'm happy to share some of those 50% off benefits if you would like to then sample a few things and make sure that it's, like you said, texture and things that your family would like. We type out the sugar, wheat, beans, milk, eat. Jessica, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you're asking. Can we type out the sugar, wheat, beans, milk, eat? If you're still on, ask your question again. I'm not sure what you're asking me. And I've got here, will you please re-say the password to the free resources? Absolutely. It's food storage, all one word, no space between food and storage, and all caps, FOODSTORAGE. I can also type it here in the chat. That might help too. Food storage, like that. Okay. Any other questions that you have for me? Wait here just a second. Awkward silence. Okay, if you do have any additional questions, either about calculating out of food storage, using the calculators that you're going to gain access to, or about my Simply Prepared e-course and if it's right for your family and how it might help you, let me know. Feel free to just shoot me an email. My email is misty@yourownhomestore.com. You can reply to any of the emails you got from me about this webinar. I will also be sending out a replay link in the next hour or so. you can reply to that email. But let me know. I don't want to leave you with unanswered questions, so get back to me. And thank you for coming today. It was a pleasure to spend some time with you, and I hope that you've found this class helpful. All right, talk to you later.